Hey, this is Jamie with Stonemaier Games, and I am here with my weekly live cast in the hopes that the comments will work this week so I can see what you are saying. I will make a little, let's see. Make a comment so I can know if comments are working this week. I'll make a little comment here to say, I'm here. Let me know if you can see that. Well, it looks like at least my comment is working. Thank you so much for joining me this week. Last week, if you're surprised by the backdrop here, I mentioned last week that I moved. My girlfriend and I have a new place together. We're living together and working together, different companies, but working in the same space together and having fun with that. And so that's why the place looks different now. This is my new office. You can see Walter in the background on the chair that I used to sit on. I have a new fancy sit-stand chair here on my new fancy sit-stand desk. There's a cabinet of secrets behind me over here. I have my whales picture back on the wall over there, and games that are just out of frame there. There's video over there too. So this is the new place, and I can see your comments here. So thank you so much for joining me, and I'm glad I'll be able to answer your questions this week. Thanks again to Connor from Inside Up Games last week for managing the comments when I couldn't see them. So what's been going on here? I don't have a ton of Stonemaier Games news this week. I've been working on just the hodgepodge of different things as usual. I did my video a few days ago, my Sunday sit down. I did it on Monday. I was a little bit late because this move has been keeping me very busy. But I did it on the rules of game night, my rules for game night, because I host game night every Wednesday. And the different rules that I have, and my preferences for the types of people that attend game night and how they act at game night. So I'm curious if you saw that video, or if you didn't, if you have any rules for game night that you maybe not necessarily impose upon your guests, but that you keep in mind, that you encourage your guests to live by during the games. Things like drinks on the table, arriving on time, treating each other with respect, treating your pets with respect, things like that. Carol says, how are you guys settling in? I think we're settling in pretty well. The list of things to do has gotten shorter and shorter. We keep adding to that list as it gets shorter and shorter, but it's pretty darn short at this point. I don't like to leave a lot of stuff laying around in boxes, neither does Megan. So it feels pretty lived in and settled in at this point. We still have a few things to do. Connor says he's boarding a plane for Europe and Essen right now. Oh, he's boarding it right now, apparently. Connor, I hope you have a good trip to Essen. I won't be at Essen, in case I know you're wondering. I'm sure I'll get that question later, but I won't be at Essen Spiel. But I hope anyone who attends has a great time there and discovers some fun games there and gets to meet some people like Connor at the convention. Renee says, let's start with chocolate of the day. Renee, thank you for that suggestion. My chocolate of the day is a little different for me because I have so Megan is a coffee drinker, and so every now and then I go and get her coffee in the morning, and I think I've always been like a little jealous that she gets this wonderful, tasty, warm thing in the morning. Tasty for her. I don't like coffee, so it's not tasty for me. So I've started trying this thing, and I shouldn't do it more than once a week because it's not healthy at all. But I've started doing this thing where I get hot chocolate with just a dash of coffee in it. And that has turned out to be very delicious. So I get a nice little warm thing in the morning, and as Megan is drinking her coffee. So that's worked out pretty well so far. So that's my chocolate of the day. I had one this morning, basically hot chocolate with a dash of coffee in it. And I'm glad I said that, because I'm glad you asked that, because I need to remind myself to get a coffee, like a portable coffee mug type thing. I don't even know what you call the portable ones. So that I don't keep using disposable coffee mugs, which I don't want to do. Not good for the environment. Daniel says that Richard Bliss is retiring the Funding the Dream podcast, end of an era. I know Richard was maybe looking for someone to take that over, Daniel. Did he not find someone to do that? I think he's kind of irreplaceable in terms of what he does at Funding the Dream, what he's done for many, many years now. Fortunately, he's leaving behind a great body of work. Hopefully he leaves the archives up there. So for any of you Kickstarter creators who prefer to listen to a podcast about Kickstarter, rather than like reading a blog like mine, Funding the Dream is absolutely incredible. And Richard's contributions to the industry and the community will be missed, his new contributions. Let's see. Wang says, have I considered a treadmill desk? I just mentioned a minute ago that I have a sit-stand desk from Uplift and a sit-stand chair. Let me see if I can show you the chair because it's pretty cool. It's this futuristic-looking chair that I'm really enjoying. It's good for my core. And Wang, I mean, I kind of consider the treadmill desk. Someone mentioned it in the comments. I think maybe it was Mahir or Vitali, but I don't know. I can't be like bouncing up and down when I work. I need to be stationary. So I don't think it would work for me, but I love the health benefits of it. And if you can pull it off, that sounds pretty awesome. Let's see. I'm just looking for questions here. Tom says, we're featuring viticulture at Paradise Hops and Tabletop Gamers. Any tips on teaching it to new players? Have you made a video? I might have a video about how to teach viticulture. I'm not exactly. Biddy, what are you doing over there? I don't know if you can see Biddy. He's up on a thing that he shouldn't be on right now. So tips on teaching viticulture. So the way that I teach viticulture is I explain the core idea that you're developing a vineyard that requires multiple steps. And I tell players that we're just going to play the first year so they can experience it, and that very little they do the first year will ruin their experience for the rest of the year. If I see someone doing something really dumb, then I'll maybe call them out on it. Not dumb, maybe just not realizing they're making a mistake. But and then I just walk them through the first year. Then we just do the first year. We play the spring, and then we play the summer. We do the fall, we do the winter. And along the way, I'm kind of explaining as we go what the different options are just for that season. And I really emphasize that they're not going to get their workers back for the winter. Players seem to forget that. So I really say that multiple times, that you're only placing each worker once per year. And then once I get to the end of the year, I kind of remind them of what the winemaking process is. Some people do it backwards to forwards. Other people do it the other way around. But just say, okay, just a reminder, if you want to make wine and get a lot of victory points, these are the steps that you're going to follow. And while it's fresh on their minds from just having gone through the first year. And after that, it plays pretty well. I mean, not a lot of teaching is required after that first year. Doug says, how do the cats adjust to and handle the move? He says, we are moving soon, over 2,000 miles, and figuring out how to best move our cats is the most difficult thing. Yeah, it was tough for me, and I didn't even move very far away. I'm still in St. Louis. Because I really want these guys to be comfortable, and I don't want to freak them out too much. So what I did, and I don't know if you'll have the luxury of doing this, moving so far, I moved them in one night before I moved in, and before any of there were some things here, but the movers hadn't moved the majority of the stuff here. So I just moved them in so they could kind of have the place to themselves and just smell it out, explore it out. I think they mostly just hid that first night. I wasn't even here. I don't even know if that was a good call, but they did seem to adjust quite quickly after that. So maybe that was helpful for them to have just a little downtime here before we moved everything in and before we moved in. Joshua says, what's your favorite bird in Wingspan? My favorite bird, period, is the peregrine falcon. And I also happen to like the mechanism of the peregrine falcon. It's kind of a push your luck kind of thing, or just a get lucky kind of thing. But yeah, I love the peregrine falcon. That would be, in fact, just a few days ago, I revealed that our charity auction this year, we do this charity thing every year where I reach out to around 10 different content creators, like bloggers, podcasters, video reviewers, things like that in the game industry. And I say, there are people whose content that I want to share with others, who I really love, and I want more people to discover them. And I invite them to this charity auction where they don't have to do anything other than tell me their charity of choice. And then I run the auction, and with each blogger / charity, I associate an item with it. And this year, that item is a custom version of Wingspan it's not really, it's a custom box where the winner of the auction will get to pick their 5 favorite birds, one of which will go on the cover and the other 4 will go on the sides. And so we're going to make we're going to digitally print a special box just for them with Wingspan inside of it, and give them a copy of the expansion. Their winning bid will be matched by us. So Stonemaier Games will match their bid, and then we'll contribute the whole thing to the charity selected by the blogger. So this will happen from November 6th to the 8th. It's a pretty short auction period. But I'm really excited about it. And Joshua, your question reminded me of it because you said, what's your favorite bird in Wingspan? So the people who win this auction will most likely put their favorite birds on the box so that they can have their own special, unique, one-of-a-kind box of Wingspan. Chris says, do I have a go-to snack on your gaming nights or a snack that is always out more than others? It really varies. Usually I have some sort of sweet treat, something that's not greasy, something that's just like easy to munch on in bite-sized bits. Trader Joe's stuff is really great for this. So tonight I'll probably have Trader Joe's chocolate-covered peanut butter pretzels out. And actually they have some seasonal pumpkin spice cookies that I might have out as well. So it's usually a few light things. Sometimes people bring stuff that they want to share. So those are the things that I usually provide. And sometimes it's just candy, just a little something sweet to munch on if people want. So Charles has asked a similar question to what birds I would put on the Wingspan box. I'd definitely put the peregrine falcon on the cover. I would maybe put an owl, like a cute little owl, on one of the sides. And there's a really beautiful bluebird. I don't think it's actually called a bluebird, but there's a beautiful bluebird that I would put on one of the other sides. I think I would go by the art for the rest, just bird art that I really, really enjoy from the game. Jake says, have I ever thought about uploading the audio of my video content onto an audio-only platform? I thought about it, Jake, and maybe I'll do it someday. But what I do is I take this video and I put it on YouTube after this. And anyone who wants to, I know this is an extra step, but there are websites you can go to where you can take a YouTube video and convert it into an MP3 or a WAV file within a few seconds. They're very fast. So I know it's an extra step for you to do, but until I think there's like significant interest in me doing it, because it does take extra time for me to do that and post it somewhere. I would recommend just going like a few hours after I post these videos, just go to the YouTube video, convert it to MP3, and then you have an audio version of it. I know it's an extra step, and if there's a more automatic way of doing that, I'm certainly open to it. It just, and I actually have been pleasantly surprised by the number of people who watch the YouTube version of this. I thought it might be just a few dozen people, but usually it's in the hundreds of people who watch this on YouTube later. So let me know if anyone else is interested in that. If it's a lot of people, I'm happy to find a way to do that. Let's see. Adrian says, when is my next game going to be announced? He can't get enough Stonemaier games. That's great to hear, Adrian. Thank you. I haven't announced when I will announce the next game yet. So we typically have released 2 games a year. And I usually try to space them out. So probably one in fairly early to mid 2020, and then another one in 2020 is probably the plan. Let's see if I have any topics here. I'll just keep going with questions and I'll come back to my topics. Renee says that he's playing cartographers and really enjoyed cartographers. That's great. I'm glad you're enjoying that. I'm really, really enjoying that too. And it's certainly going to make, I'm doing a video on my top 10 roll and write games, and I'm sure that will be on the list. That'll be coming up soon. Tony says, we played Mysterium last night to get into the Halloween mood. Any spooky or horror themed game plans for the Halloween season? Yeah, it's fun to do that. We did Fury of Dracula one year. I feel like we've done it a few other years. I think we may have even done Mysterium one year. We did Mansions of Madness one year with like candles and whatnot. My friends played Horrified at my game night last week. I played Parks, which wasn't a scary game, but Horrified was on the table. I don't have a certain plan to bring out any of them. I'd love to do Legendary Alien Encounters. That's one of my really favorite cooperative games other than the setup. But that's kind of a scary game. Looking at my shelf over here for anything else. That's probably the scariest game that I have on my shelf, and that's certainly like a horror sci-fi movie. So maybe I'll find a way to get that to the table. Daniel says there's a drink called Suizo, Suizo, which is this melted chocolate goodness. They serve it in Barcelona at a place called Granja Docina. I can't pronounce that. And you dip a churro in it. That sounds amazing. I think I've had something like that. Where have I had that? I feel like I've dipped a churro in some like melted chocolate kind of like that, and it was amazing. Certainly wasn't there in Barcelona, but that sounds really, really good. Elaine says they're getting back into Betrayal Legacy for October. That would be a good game for the Halloween season. Chad says, do you have a staircase at my new place so I can keep up with your exercises? Yeah, Chad's referring to the weird exercise that I do, which is my daily workout is that I do about 10 minutes of core workout, like sit-ups, that kind of thing. I do, and I mix that with 10 minutes of weights, like free weights. And then I do about 10 to 15 minutes where I just run up and down the stairs in my building. My previous building was 8 stories tall, so that was, a lot of up and down stairs. Now my building is a little smaller, but does still have stairs, and so I've been running up and down those. It's essentially, how many stairs am I doing? It's about 400 stairs. Is that right? It might be more than that. But yeah, so I love those kind of like short stamina workouts. And yes, Chad, I am still doing that and enjoying it. Clint says, in Tapestry against the Automa, who goes first? Is it randomly determined? That's a great question, but not one that I can answer. I'm the multiplayer designer. I don't focus on Automa. So if there's someone who knows Automa here in the comments and can answer Clint's question about Tapestry, feel free to do so. Juan says, any clue on a date for the release of Wingspan on Steam? I don't know. I know I think they're aiming for a beta version in the first quarter of 2020, but that's up to the developers, so I don't really know. Gerald says, games like Dinosaur Island take thematic inspiration from movies and books. Do you know any tips or cautions about taking thematic inspiration from famous IPs? I think really the key is not to do something that someone could directly confuse with the original IP, and obviously not plagiarize it, not violate a trademark or things like that. So Dinosaur Island is a great example where it's clearly its own thing, but it's also clearly inspired by Jurassic Park. But it's inspired by it. It's not that no one will look at Dinosaur Island and think, oh, this is a Jurassic Park IP. And I think they did a good job of differentiating from that. So I think that's really the key. You can even pay homage, which I do in Euphoria, for example. I pay homage to some of my favorite utopian or dystopian fiction without putting like the name of it on there, things like that. Chris says, can I talk about the auction? Yeah, so Chris, I mentioned that a few minutes ago, but basically it'll be on Board Game Geek. Anyone can bid on it. Usually the bids get pretty high pretty fast, but it's for a good cause. I mean, there are 10 charities, usually 10 charities selected by these different bloggers and content creators, and we're going to money match it. So like usually the winning bids, we money match up to $500. So usually the winning bids end up at 500 or beyond, and each charity ends up getting $1,000 or more because of the bidder plus our match. And as I mentioned before, each winner will get a copy of the Wingspan expansion and a special copy of Wingspan where we'll digitally print the cover with their 5 favorite birds on it. They'll get to choose the bird for the cover bird, and then the birds on the sides. That'll be on from November 6th to the 8th. Elaine says, how many Tapestry videos have I commented on errors and rules on? I've actually kind of avoided, I mean, I don't watch like review videos about my games, or I don't read reviews, so, or about any Stonemaier games really. So I have not, and I really definitely stay away from the comments because I want people to feel welcome to express their opinions without feeling like the designer is looking over their shoulder or the publisher is looking over their shoulder. Anthony says, have I played Black Angel? I haven't played it. I have some friends who had it out at game night the other night. It looks beautiful, but I haven't played it yet. Let's see if... I haven't played, I've been moving in, so I haven't really played a lot of games lately. I just played Parks at game night last week, and I think that's the only game. I did go climbing this past weekend, but that's not actually a game, more of a sport or an activity. Charles says, am I keeping up with Essen releases? If so, anything that you're looking forward to trying? I think I've actually been a little bit out of the loop on Essen. I'm aware of games coming out, but not exactly which ones are coming out at Essen. I think maybe the big highlight for me is the Terra Mystica expansion, which I had the pleasure of playing an advanced copy of about a month ago, but that'll be an Essen release. And then we have some games that'll be coming out at Essen. We have Tapestry will be available at Essen from Matago, and the Wingspan expansion will also be available from Matago. Josh missed the chocolate of the day. Yeah, Josh, the chocolate of the day was a hot chocolate from a coffee shop with a dash of coffee in it. Because I don't drink coffee, but I love hot chocolate, and a little caffeine from coffee can't hurt. Makes me a little jittery, but it's not too bad. Chad says, what's the game for game night tonight? I don't know. Usually we have 3 games going at game night, and I'm pretty flexible. So if someone brings a game that they're really excited about, I'm happy to play it. there were 2 games last night that I really, or last week that I actually really 3 I wanted to play. There were Horrified, Campaign Trail, and Parks. I ended up playing Parks because I was brain burned. I just wanted a simple game, and but which ended up being really, really good. And let's see, and Campaign Trail was another one that I really wanted to try, but I did not, didn't get to it. So maybe Campaign Trail if Henry brings it back this week. Sorry, just leaving myself a little reminder there to about something about Parks. Brian says that he's playing Charterstone tonight. That's awesome, Brian. You've played, how many, is this your second campaign or third campaign? Because I know you've already played 1 full campaign. He asks, have I been playing any legacy games lately? I haven't, but I'm eager to get back to a regular campaign schedule. It's been a while since I've done one. And the next game I'm pretty sure that we'll be doing is Clank Legacy. But my order hasn't come in yet, so I'm just waiting for Clank Legacy to come out. Has anyone played Clank Legacy yet, or is it not released for everybody? Sean says, in Wingspan, did I make the state birds worth more feathers? I don't think so. I think we just made, or Elizabeth made a formula for all the birds. She has a big complex spreadsheet that she uses to weigh the different values of all the birds. So we use that, not subjective things like state birds. Pete says, can I please choose a title for my next game that starts with a Y? It is the only letter I need to complete the alphabet for my game collection. Have you played Yggdrasil? That's one. It's a little, I think it's out of print. It's hard to find, but there might be a reprint coming or a new edition. But Yggdrasil, I believe, starts with a Y, and it's actually a pretty solid cooperative game. Socrates says, legacy games seem more difficult to design. Is that true? What goes into designing them? And he loves Charterstone, by the way. Thank you. I'm glad you're enjoying Charterstone. Legacy games are incredibly difficult to design. Even though I listened to like every podcast that Rob Dabbio had been on talking about legacy games, and I was still overwhelmed. And the thing that surprised me about it was just the mental overload that is required to think through all of the different combinations of things that can happen when you make a change in a legacy game. So you get feedback from a playtester about game 5, and you have to probably make a change based on whatever that feedback was, and you have to think about all the different things that change impacts before you make it, and then you have to test that change. And so there were times where I would just sit here at this desk and think, and just like think and use my brain to try to figure out, okay, how will this change impact everything, and make my best guess at what I could change, and then have to test it, obviously, to do my best to test it. There's just so many different combinations of things, even like just how you teach the game, how you unlock the rules and the different orders, and making sure everything links correctly. It's extremely difficult. I wouldn't even recommend it. I mean, maybe as a thought experiment, giving it a try. But the reason you don't see more legacy games is that they are incredibly difficult to design. Let's see. People are recommending some horror-themed games in the comments here. Froyland says, turn order question for Tapestry. Is the player turn order supposed to be clockwise based on seating arrangement of players, regardless where they start on the board, or based on players' position on the board? They're actually one and the same. The rules tell you to sit near your capital city on the board, and so where you sit will correspond to the clockwise position on the board, and so they're one and the same. Gerald says, you don't want to design rounds or phases, which is generally true, yes. Did I have an internal designer struggle to include the very cool income turn in Tapestry? Kind of a mini action list and a phase. Well, originally it was, so I guess there are phases within that turn. But the difference is it's not the type of phases that I dislike. The type of phases I dislike are when you play the entire game in phases, where you say, okay, everyone, now's the farming phase. Everyone do your farming actions. Okay, now's the income phase. Everyone do your income phase. Because you kind of need a game manager then. And those phases just really disrupt, to me, the flow of the game. Opposed to a game like A Feast for Odin, where each round, the flow of the game is very smooth. You're just placing workers, the next player goes, placing workers, the next player goes. And yes, then there are phases at the end of the round where you do need a game manager, but for the majority of the game flows really well. And so in Tapestry, I tried to even eliminate that even more by having these income turns where it's just part of the game. I take my turn. It's either going to be an advancement turn or an income turn. There's no point in the game where you're saying, okay, everyone needs to do this except for the first income turn. But that's just to kind of warm players up. So I think it was actually a really good compromise, and it wasn't inspired by Everdell, but it ended up being very similar to what Everdell did. I think Everdell really keeps that flow of the game by a very similar income turn in that game. William says he finally got the Steam version of Scythe. It matches the physical game very nicely. How much are you involved with the digital creation of your games? How does sharing art assets work with me and the game designers? Did you give the Scythe designers your CAD files for your mechs, etc.? So when we have a digital version of one of our games, we license the property. We license the game to a digital developer, and they handle it from there. So I'm really not involved very much at all. Every once in a while, they'll come to me and say, hey, can you approve this? Does this thing need to be exactly the same as the tabletop game? Things like that. But for the most part, they just run with it. I don't even want to be involved all that much. I want them to create a great product, but I trust them to do that based on the other work that I've seen from them. I share all the art assets, the source files for the mechs and any miniatures, and all the core files for the game, and they just run with it. Ken says, have I played Fleet the Dice game? We loved it, but found the income track part a little confusing. I haven't, and unfortunately not. That definitely is on my list of roll and write games to try, probably at the top of the list, really, of roll and write games to try that I haven't already played. Angel says, do you use rules or modes created by you on other games? Like house rules, things like that. Do I have any official house rules? Like a fake artist goes to New York, we play house rules. And I would say games where points aren't all that important, very rare, like Telestrations. A fake artist goes to New York. Those are the types of games that we kind of house rule, that we just play for fun, and we don't keep track of points and things like that. But for the most part, we no, I don't really house rule stuff. Not that I can think of offhand. Brian confirms that he's on his third campaign of Charterstone. That's awesome. And he's also starting a new Risk Legacy campaign with friends. Highly recommend that. Oh, and he's finishing up Machikoro Legacy. I've been wanting to play that. Charles says, how could I forget about Yedo for Y? Yes, I mean I would actually recommend that even above Yggdrasil. Yedo is a wonderful game, one of my favorites, and it does start with Y. Jeremy says, any thoughts about the MeepleSource Kickstarter campaign? Do you work with them? Are you happy with their work? So Stonemaier Games policy for third-party accessory creators is that they sign an agreement with us that says that we won't. We'll make it very clear that anything we make is not an official Stonemaier Games product, and there are a few other stipulations, like they can't use official art from the game, things like that. Nothing that's copyrighted or trademarked. But from there, they can just run with it. I want companies, I want creators and people to create cool stuff for our games, and MeepleSource definitely falls into that category. We do have a special relationship with MeepleSource because they sell promos for our games, but that is completely unrelated to anything that they create, which, for example, is like the Wingspan campaign. But I'm curious how that's doing. Let's see how the Kickstarter campaign for Wingspan, for MeepleSource's Wingspan tokens is going. Yeah, as long as there's no confusion with it not being like an official Stonemaier thing, I'm totally fine with it. Speaking of Kickstarter, I backed 2 campaigns yesterday. I rarely back more than one campaign on the same day, but there are a few games that just look pretty cool. There's a game called Fossils that just looks like a fun, just a really cool game. It's an archaeology game with some really cool components. And I backed the Zorro game from, I'm going to forget the name because I think they changed their company name. It was Overworld Games. They now changed the name. But the Zorro game looked really fun, great price point, and just some mechanisms that I thought looked like a lot of fun to play. Did you all back? There have been a lot of projects coming out on Kickstarter over the last few days. Did you all back anything? Oh, it looks like Biddy opened the door and he shouldn't have. Biddy, come back in here. Come on. Sorry about that. Okay, let's see. I say let's see a lot, don't I? I'll try to stop saying that. William says, Am I going to make the Swift Start promo pack continually available in the future to buy separately so that those of us, yes, yeah, obviously, yeah, definitely. Of course, it won't be, we don't really do one-time limited stuff unless demand runs out. Are you going to fix any typos in the European expansion in the future printings, like the missing centimeters in Common Swift? Yeah, I mean, we'll fix. I mean, there's hardly anything to fix in this expansion. I think we did a really good job of proofreading it. But sure, like if someone's really bothered by the lack of centimeters, so like the numbers there, just the CM is not there. Yeah, of course, we'll fix that. And William says, are we going to get to, have I gotten to play Villainous recently? No, but I really do want to play Villainous. Yeah. Okay. Any other random topics? Okay, I finished watching Firefly and then ended with Serenity. I mentioned last week that Megan and I have been watching through Firefly, which she's a big fan of. She's watched them many times. I've never seen Firefly. I'd only seen Serenity, and I definitely enjoyed the show more than the movie. But I thought the movie, at least they had the chance to make the movie to cap off the series, which was unfortunately cut way short. And also, we're watching Lord of the Rings, the extended versions of Lord of the Rings, which I have actually never watched. I've seen the original versions many times, but I've never seen the extended versions. And I'm trying to figure out how I feel about them. For the most part, I'm really enjoying the little extra bits. But I can also see why a lot of this stuff was cut for the standard versions, because a 4-hour movie is really long. But I'm curious what you think. Do you prefer the extended versions of Lord of the Rings movies or the standard length versions, and why? Looks like my little niece and Annika, her caretaker, is here. So Maudie, I want to say hi to you. Maudie is my niece who did the unboxing video for Tapestry. If you look at the Tapestry Facebook group, you'll see a video that I posted there this morning of little Maudie unboxing the game with a really cute voiceover from Margaret, my sister-in-law. David says, are there implications to not sitting near your civilization on the map and turn order? He says, we didn't adjust seats the last time I played, and it didn't seem to impact gameplay in any apparent way. I'm sure it's very minor. It's just more it being more intuitive for players to remember who's next to who and all that. You are just looking at players to your left and your right when you look at neighbors. So I think it's just less confusing when you think about who your neighbors are. They're the actual people sitting to your left and your right, and not often, but sometimes it will have a small impact on your actual position on the board. Jacob says, what challenges do you make for yourself when you're designing a new game? I want to make something, the main challenge is I want to make something unique and innovative, something that I'm going to have fun with, and that can end up meeting all of our design goals, something that's beautiful on the table, things like that. And what's the last one? And more and more, I think about games that are intuitive. I want games that are easy to get to the table, that players don't have to read a massive rule book to get that game to the table. So those are the types of challenges I present myself with every game that I design. Josh says, would I consider designing a campaign style or narrative driven game? I enjoyed Fenris, but I'd like a title that explores a world. Yeah, I was going to say Fenris. I mean, The Rise of Fenris is my main campaign game, but Charterstone is also a campaign game. I'm actually steering away from campaign games just because I think there are so many that are now available to people. And even though I love the stories they tell, I think it's a pretty big commitment. I think they're actually fairly hard to get to the table because of the commitment they entail. So I am doing something with a little bit of persistence in one of my games, or a little bit of ongoing storytelling, but not long campaign arcs. Craig says, have I played Noria? He picked it up on vacation and loved it. I have not played Noria, no. Gerald says, every card in Magic is perfect at the right time and unhelpful at the wrong time. How do I mentally deal with reading some misjudged comments about this and that card in Tapestry or in other games being totally useless? Does it annoy you? Sure, yeah. So I mean, it depends on how someone says it. If they say that this card is just total trash, sure, that can be a little annoying. But I think, like you said, ideally I would design cards in games like Viticulture, especially when there's a random draw, Viticulture Tapestry, where they have more than just circumstantial usefulness, where they can at least do something that can move you forward, whether they're played early in the game, late in the game, or depending on your current circumstance. That's the ideal situation. But there are certain cards that are definitely maximized. I want players to feel powerful for using the card really well and at the right time. And so because of that, I just think it comes with that target, that goal for card design. So I'm okay with people saying that. Hopefully they do realize that that I think that ends up being better than a card that is equally as good at all times. Just doesn't seem as fun as a card that can be maximized by the players. What other topics do I have here? Any random topics? I think I've actually covered all my random topics. Beth says that she wanted to say that her adult son, who is difficult to talk into playing tabletop games, asked to play Tapestry and liked it. That's awesome, Beth. I'm glad to hear that. Nicholas says that he helped demo Tapestry at a small con recently, and he hadn't played it prior to the convention. He loves how oh, you're just saying a very nice thing here, Nicholas. I don't mean to, thank you. That means a lot to me. I'm glad you had fun with it. Jep, I'm going to mispronounce your name. I'm sorry about that. But you say, will the Wingspan expansion be at Essen? Yes, it will be. Matago will have the English and I believe the French copies there. They're selling our English copies at Essen. And no, I don't know their booth, but if you look up Matago, I'm sure you can find their booth. Nathan says, did I ever find the Viticulture Kickstarter video? I was able to watch it. Someone sent it to me last week. I think Chad sent it to me. Chad, thank you for doing that. And so I was able to find it. Thank you for doing that. Just reading through comments here. Carol says, have I checked out the Roam and Roll on Kickstarter? Heavier roll and write. We tried it at Gen Con. It's pretty great. I have seen that. I've seen people backing it. I haven't backed it yet, but I'll go check it out. Yeah, thank you for the recommendation. Trevor says, which mechanism in a game you designed was the most difficult to get right and why? I would say probably the combat in Scythe, which is arguably not right. I am very happy with how it turned out. I understand that some people don't like it as much, but it took many versions of that combat for me to be happy with it. It started off with big handfuls of dice, and but I moved pretty far away from that because I wanted to give players a lot more agency than that, but I also needed to have enough balance to incentivize attackers to actually attack and incentivize defenders to actually defend. That balance is very difficult, I think, in combat. So yeah, that was by far, I went through like 25 different versions of combat until I was satisfied with the combat in Scythe. Ivan says, how's the move-in? Everything in place by now? Can we see the new shelf spot? It's just off camera here. You can't quite see it, but yeah, Ivan's referring to the fact that last week I moved to a new place with my girlfriend, still in St. Louis, just a new place. You can see Walter back there on the chair, and Vidya has escaped and is whining somewhere. And we're pretty much all settled in. We have a few other things to do, but we're pretty close at this point. Thanks for asking. Sean says, we played Tapestry last night, and the question came up if there's recommended civs to start with for the first-time players. I don't have specific recommended civilizations, but I would say just to be a little flexible for first-time players. If you give them 2 civilizations and they read them and are like, I just don't understand what this means, I don't want to do this, let them pick another one. There are some recommendations on Board Game Geek that people have posted. And one of the nice things is there are many civilizations that you can just ignore if you want. So if it's just too much for you to think about in that first play, just ignore the civilization and focus on something else. Or focus on all the other core mechanisms. Brian asked if I played the Jaws game from Ravensburger, and I haven't yet, but you said it reminded you of Scotland Yard, another Ravensburger game, and that makes me want to play it. So let me add that. I'll add that to my list to try. Gerald says, have you and Megan considered the baby name Mega Jamie? Megan and I don't want kids, so we haven't considered that, but maybe a future pet name, Mega Jamie. People are commenting on which versions of Lord of the Rings they like, which is interesting for me to read here. Wang says, do I make vision documents for your board games If so, what is their structure? Not exactly vision documents, but I always start with pencil and paper brainstorming, and I often come back to that during the early design process. A lot of pencil and paper brainstorming that ends up looking a little bit like a vision document, but really it's just a brainstorming document. Chad says, how much input did I give to Andrew Bosley so he could illustrate Tapestry? I would say a fair amount. Well, maybe not a fair amount. I mean, I told him specifically what not what to draw, but I gave him cards. I gave him the Tapestry cards and said, these are the cards that I need for the game. It wasn't that I went art first and said, Andrew, draw some stuff and I'll design cards for them. It was more, I gave him the names of the cards and often the abilities and the civilizations, and he drew based on that. I would say the thing that we spent the most time going back and forth on was the map art, the bird's eye view. We had some big discussions about what I wanted that to look like and what he was able to do. And we kind of met in the middle there. Matt says, my group has said that the Renaissance Tapestry card was actually broken when I played it, but I did realize how to use it correctly by positioning it on the board accordingly and also taking the income turn early to capitalize on it. Yeah, I think Renaissance is pretty powerful when you get it early in the game. Clint says, any teaser for the upcoming Tapestry expansion? Will it have something to do with building wonders of the world? Well, Tapestry already has wonders. They're called landmarks in Tapestry instead of wonders. But as for the expansion, it's still really early. I've just started designing it and working on it. So it'll be a while before I really talk about it. But I appreciate your curiosity. Jeff says, you wrote on my personal blog a while back that you were considering buying a new car. Do I still have the Toyota? I do still have the Toyota. And it's still going strong. And based on my new location, I don't have to drive very much at all. So getting a car is no longer as much of a priority. I'm sure I'll get one at some point, but not at this point. Lisa says, Lisa's a retailer, I'm sorry, Lisa's not a retailer. Lisa says, my copy of Tapestry has been on the demo table at work since I got it by my choice. I played it 4 times, and I'm so excited to get it back home this week to play it more. That's awesome, Lisa. Thank you for sharing. Chad says, and Lisa might be, maybe I'm confusing you with someone else, Lisa. I thought you might be a retailer. Chad says, did I ever decide what I was going to do to put onto my cat's litter boxes? No, I didn't. You can kind of see the litter box down there. I haven't decided what to cover the Clever Cat with, but there's some great ideas on Instagram of things that I could put up there, just funny things. I think my favorite was the Mario pipe, like showing Mario going down a pipe. I thought that was really clever. Or maybe just photos of the cats, putting that on there. Sam says, usually I keep the SKU, MSRP, and retail release date secret before Stonemeier's pre-order to stop others from selling the games they don't have. And really just to make sure, like part of the main focus is to make sure everyone has the same information at the same time. But with the Wingspan expansion, I decided not to do this. Why the change? Was it retailers and distributors' reactions to the Wingspan shortage? No, it was more of a matter of timing. Just the Wingspan expansion took a little bit longer to manufacture than I was hoping. And I wanted to keep a retail release date before the holiday season, mostly for my international partners that rely heavily on that holiday season. And I do too, but it's really particularly important for them. So I just needed enough time between the announcement and the retail release date, and doing the pre-order in early October just didn't work because we didn't have the games yet. We didn't have the expansion in stock yet because it hadn't arrived. So I just thought, I'll experiment. I'll put everything out there and see how it goes, and I will write about it after we do the pre-order because I'm curious to see how much that impacts the pre-orders. One other really key ingredient there, though, that I've tried to emphasize to distributors and retailers is not to sell stuff that they don't definitely have. So we told distributors their allocations of the Wingspan expansion on that same day that I released that information. So if distributors do their jobs, they will allocate those expansions for their retailers. And so the retailers will only sell what they know they're actually getting instead of overselling stuff that they don't know they'll get. So hopefully everything will work out there based on the timing of when we told those allocations to distributors. Rob says, when designing a game, how do I normally do the playtest? What do I recommend to happen and do in a playtest session? So there are 2 types of playtests. One are local playtests where I'm there usually playing the game with people. I have one this afternoon where we just kind of we immerse ourselves in the game. We play. If something is really broken, then we'll make an adjustment on the fly. But usually we just play through, and then I ask questions at the end of the game, like what was confusing or frustrating, and what was fun, what was the most fun, and then I take notes while we're playing. For blind play test, I have a whole other system where I send the files to playtesters around the world, and they learn the game on their own, and they play it with their own groups. I compensate them for doing so, and I get both data and anecdotal feedback from them. Simon says, what game do I look at and think, boy, I wish I'd designed that? Also, have I played the updated version of Dune? I have not played the updated version of Dune yet. I wish I had designed Mysterium. I think that's a really, really clever design. I wish I had designed Sulkin. Many of my favorite games I look at, I'm like, oh, I wish I had designed that. Jeff said, do I see Stonemaier being a trendsetter in the industry? How much do you consider what your contemporaries are doing to ensure that you're offering additional value in your content in our products? Yeah, I mean, I pay attention to board game reviews and news, and I play tons of games from other publishers because I'm constantly both amazed by what others are doing and inspired by them. As for us being a trendsetter, I honestly don't think about that. I want to share the things that I do with others so they can learn from my mistakes and my successes. But trendsetter, I don't really think of myself that way, or Stonemaier that way. Kent says, does Megan have any pets? She does now, 2 cats, but she didn't before. Jeb says, what's next for you after Tapestry? What's next for Stonemaier is the Wingspan expansion. What's next for me as a designer? I'm working on a few games right now. I haven't talked too much about them. One is an open world exploration game. I haven't talked much about the other one. Nicholas says, have I been to the City Museum in St. Louis? I have, yeah, a few times. It's been a while, but I have been there. And museum is kind of a misleading term for anyone who is unfamiliar with it. It's more like a giant playground for adults and kids, but for anyone, for people. I guess it does have a slight feel of a museum, but it's not a type of museum where you go around and look at things. You are interacting with pretty much everything at the museum, and they're huge. Like they built a cave system, they built a giant slide, it's just like a big playground. It's really cool. I need to take my nieces and nephews there the next time they come to St. Louis. Let me close the door again real quick. Biddy got back out. You gotta stay out there, bud. Okay, the Dice Odyssey says, have I played ActRaiser on Super Nintendo? I've never even heard of that. It looks pretty cool the way you describe it, but no, I've never even heard of that one. Josh says, after working with Andrew Bosley on Tapestry, can we expect to see his work in future Stonemaier projects? Hopefully the Tapestry expansions, yes. I'd love to work with Andrew again. I think he's a very busy and popular artist, so I don't know if we'll get the chance, but I would love to do so. Brian, Biddy is now whining out here. Come on. This is gonna be a problem. I'm gonna have to lock the cats in when I do these videos. Let's see. I think I've covered all my topics. I'm just looking for questions here. Brian says, 2 of your games take place in Europe, 1 in the future and 2 in fictional lands. Anywhere in the world you really want to set a board game? And yes, the answer is Japan. I studied Japanese for most of my life. I studied abroad twice in Hiroshima and once in Kyoto for my junior year of college. And so Japan is very close to my heart. I'd love to set a game there, whether it's a real Japan or fictional Japan. Michael says, any games that I'm excited for on Kickstarter? Yeah, I backed 2 yesterday. I backed the Zorro game, and I backed Fossilis, the Fossil game. And there were a lot of other games that I was tempted to back over the last few days. A lot of companies have launched games that look really, really cool, but I only backed those 2 so far. Chad says, do I actively think about creating a brand new mechanism rather than making new twists on existing mechanisms? I definitely want to make unique, innovative stuff, but I guess it isn't entirely important to me that it has to be something brand new that has never been done before. I'd love to design the next deck building. That mechanism has had such a huge impact on the industry, but I wouldn't say I actively think about it. I kind of just like stumble upon these things as I design. It's hard to go into it and say, hey, I want to do this thing. And I do have a long list of mechanisms that I want to try. I'm pointing at my Trello list here, but it oftentimes even a mechanism that sounds really cool in principle doesn't actually work in practice. I do have something pretty cool that we're doing or that I'm doing in my open world game that I don't think has been done before, and will be tough to replicate, but we'll see how it works out. Sean says install a cat door. I could install a cat door on these doors. So I'm looking at my office doors, which separate me from where Megan works. And so Megan also works from home. So just trying to respect her, the noise level for her. And of course, Biddy is standing outside now whining that is not in here, because that's what Biddy does. Mark says, not sure if this has been addressed, but I'm wondering if Stonemaier is working on a solution for the wingspan mat scaling problem, which are really frustrating to play with. Yeah, Mark, I'm sorry to hear about that frustration. So what happened with the wingspan neoprene mats is it appears that the factory printed them 5% too small. So the bad news is the spaces for the cards on the mat are 5% smaller than they should be. The good news is the mats are still functional. I understand your frustration, but I've tried them. They certainly do function. You have to position the top row cards a little higher than they should, and the bottom row cards a little lower than they should, and the middle cards just fit in there. It does function. Well, what I'm going to do, like we made a bunch of these mats, and so I am going to sell them at the same discount that I accidentally offered them on in the first place. So Mark, since you have the mats, you bought them at an accidental 50% discount, and I will continue to sell them at that discount with a big disclaimer saying that they are 5% too small. Okay, I don't want to mislead anyone. If someone wants to buy them, they can. And I think maybe 100 people bought them earlier than they should have based on a mistake that I made 2 weeks ago. So the solution is that we will be fixing that for a future print run if we decide to make more, but I am going to sell the ones that I have at a steep discount so people can have them if they really want them and decide if they like them or not, because they are functional. I wouldn't sell them if they were unfunctional, and they do function. I've tested it. Wang says, in life, not business, how do I decide what is worth my time? If something makes me and the others around me happy, I at least consider it, and then I consider other things like can I afford it, and is it worth my time opposed to the other things I could be doing with that time? That's a fun question, Wang. You're asking good questions today. John says, how do I come up with my project code names? I try to think. I just think about it and think of. John is referring to the fact that for any game that I'm working on, I like to show the progress of that game on the news part of our website, but I don't reveal the name of the game yet. But I do I create a code name for it that hints at what the game is about or some key ingredient in the game. Chad says, what picture do I have on my desktop wallpaper? I think that says a lot about a person. I have the default wallpaper. I rarely ever even see my desktop because I have two screens. One screen has Chrome on it and the other screen has email on it. Sean says, have I ever read March Upcountry? I haven't. No, would you recommend that? Is that a book or a blog? What is March Upcountry? We're almost out of time here. It looks like I've reached the end of the questions. So we're getting close here. If you have any other questions, let me know. Otherwise, I'll end this week's chat and put it up on YouTube for people to download and maybe convert to MP3 like we talked about earlier. The Dice Odyssey says, what is currently my best-selling game? From Stonemaier Games, our best-selling game is still Scythe, but Wingspan is rapidly catching up to that, at least in terms of games in circulation. Chad says, what's for lunch? I'm still trying to figure that out myself, Chad. I don't know. It's probably going to be soup, but I'm kind of craving pizza, so it might be pizza, but I should eat the soup. I should finish off the soup. So I'll figure that out pretty soon. I'm starting to get hungry, but I usually don't eat until noon, and it's 11 o'clock here now. Sean says that March Upcountry is a book series by David Weber and John Ringo. Great book. Yeah, thank you for the recommendation. All right, folks, thank you so much for joining me today. I'm going to head on out, but I will be, I'll see you on the next live cast or on my YouTube channel or on the blog, somewhere I'll see you out there. Thanks for joining me. Take care. Have a good Wednesday. Bye.